Black founder denied entry to her own boardroom. Minutes later, she reclaimed the chair. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Keep her out. Doesn't matter. The words slipped through the glass wall like a blade. On one side of that wall, laughter, suits, and the smell of expensive cologne. On the other, silence. A woman in a deep emerald dress sat alone in the corridor, one leg crossed over the other, holding a leather folder on her lap. She didn't tap her foot, didn't check her phone. She just waited, calm, poised, unreadable. Her name was Amara Lewis, founder of Atlas Technologies, a billion-dollar fintech firm built from nothing but grit and brilliance. Yet at that moment, the guards at the door didn't see a founder. They saw a stranger. Inside the boardroom, 6 men in tailored gray suits leaned back in their chairs, laughing about optics and public image. One of them, the acting chairman, said loud enough for the hallway to hear, "She's late again. Typical. Let's start without her." The mystery macker. Another replied, "Good. Investors don't like distractions, especially her kind." The room chuckled. Outside, Amara heard every word. Her face didn't change. Only her fingers tightened slightly around the folder. The security officer at the door shifted awkwardly, whispering, "Ma'am, this meeting's for executives only." "I know," she said softly. "I built the company." He blinked, confused, then forced a polite smile. "Right. Still, I need to confirm with Mr. Harris before letting you in." Mr. Harris, her own COO, the man now sitting comfortably in her chair. Through the glass, she could see them all. 6 silhouettes bathed in warm light, a table polished to perfection, reflections of power without conscience. And her reflection, the one they refused to recognize, staring back at her from the glass wall. Her assistant, a young woman named Chanel, passed by holding files. She paused, eyes widening. "Miss Lewis? They told me you canceled." "And use." Amara smiled faintly. "Apparently they did too." Chanel hesitated. "Should I tell them?" "No," Amara interrupted gently. "Let's see what they do when they think no one's watching." Inside, Mr. Harris raised his voice. "Gentlemen, let's be honest. This company needs a new face. Investors want polish, not protest. We move to vote today." The men nodded in agreement. Chairs squeaked. Pens clicked. From the hallway, Amara could hear every motion of betrayal. She had seen this before, years ago, in a small co-working space when a banker once told her, "People like you don't lead, they follow." Back then, she swallowed her pride and worked twice as hard. Today, she had no need to prove herself. "Keep her out," Harris said again. "Doesn't matter." That was the final straw. Amara rose from her seat, smooth, deliberate, and adjusted her sleeve. The green fabric caught the morning light, a quiet signal that the game was about to change. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm enough to make the air itself listen. "Then let's make it matter. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change." Now, back to Amara Lewis. The hallway still hummed with the faint echo of laughter leaking through the glass. Amara stood motionless, her eyes tracing the edge of the boardroom door, the same door that had opened for her 100 times before, but today stayed firmly shut. A janitor passed by, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies. He glanced at her, curious. "Big meeting in there?" She nodded once. "The biggest." He smiled politely and moved on, not realizing he'd just spoken to the woman who owned the building he cleaned. Amara lowered herself back into the chair, posture straight, as though she were in control of the waiting. Her reflection in the glass looked serene, but her thoughts burned with precision. This wasn't an accident. It was a test, one she had designed without their knowledge. For weeks, whispers had reached her that Harris and the others were planning a transition of leadership, that they were meeting with investors behind her back, framing it as strategic restructuring. She didn't storm in then. She waited, quietly, strategically, because Amara knew real power never rushes. It arrives exactly on time. From inside, the meeting shifted tone. Slides flickered on a wall monitor. "We'll rebrand Atlas as a more approachable firm," Harris said, pacing. "Someone like Amara, she's brilliant, sure, but the image doesn't fit global investors." One of the directors added, "She intimidates clients. Too assertive, too serious." Laughter followed. To them, her intellect was fine in silence, threatening in presence. Through the glass, Amara could see their gestures, self-congratulatory, careless. The same men who once praised her for saving the company during a market crash were now rewriting her out of its story. Chanel, her assistant, reappeared. She clutched a small tablet close to her chest, whispering, "Ma'am, the internal calendar shows this meeting as board strategy. Confidential. You weren't even listed." "Not bees." Amara smiled, that quiet, dangerous kind of smile. "Perfect," she said. "That means they're exactly where I want them." She opened her leather folder, revealing her own tablet inside, sleek, encrypted, its interface glowing faintly blue. A single command rested at the top: Atlas Protocol, executive access only. Her thumb hovered over the screen, but she didn't press it yet. Not until they revealed themselves fully. A courier walked past, greeting the guards with casual chatter. One of them gestured toward Amara. "She's waiting for someone inside." The courier laughed. "They're going to make her wait all day if she's not on the list." The guard chuckled in return, unaware that both their employment statuses would expire before sunset. Inside, Harris leaned toward the board. "Gentlemen, we'll announce the leadership shift next quarter. Investors will love the optics of stability. By then, Amara's shares will be diluted through acquisition. Smooth, legal, and invisible. Wacko. Won't she notice?" one director asked. "She'll notice too late," Harris replied, confident. Outside the glass, Amara's gaze sharpened. She had spent her life decoding numbers, but the language of arrogance, that she understood best. Chanel leaned closer. "You're really just going to sit here?" Amara turned to her, eyes calm but voice edged with quiet resolve. "Patience isn't weakness, Chanel. It's the last stage before precision." Replied, "Infescinant." She closed the folder slowly, stood up, and smoothed her dress. The air around her shifted, heavy, anticipatory, like the stillness before a storm. Inside, Harris said something again, his voice smug. "She doesn't even have the courage to show up. That's why she'll lose everything." Amara stepped closer to the glass wall, her reflection merging with theirs. She whispered almost to herself, "Keep talking, gentlemen. Every word is a signature on your own resignation." This captive of videos and rollies. And as she reached for her tablet again, the faint hum of electricity filled the hall, the quiet beginning of a reckoning none of them saw coming. The boardroom lights glowed gold against the glass, but outside, Amara's reflection looked colder steel beneath calm. She stood only a few feet from the door, close enough to hear the cadence of mockery that echoed inside. Harris's voice carried, sharp with authority. "Let's move to item 7, distribution of control shares. If Amara chooses not to attend, we proceed without her consent." Someone laughed. "She's always talking about ethics. Let's see how that holds when she loses the vote." The words rippled through the air like oil on water, a mix of greed, comfort, and ignorance. Amara's jaw flexed once, but her expression stayed composed. She'd faced worse. Venture capitalists who called her aggressive, partners who credited her success to luck, press articles that celebrated her brilliance but questioned her temperament. Each insult had become another brick in the wall she built, one that now surrounded those very men inside. Chanel, still standing nearby, whispered nervously, "Should I record this?" Amara shook her head. "No need. They're recording their own downfall in real time." With most advised. Through the glass, the youngest board member, a man named Blake, shifted uneasily. "Maybe we should wait. Optics-wise, excluding her might look bad." Harris shot him a glare. "You're here to vote, not to hesitate." "But she's still the founder," Blake murmured. "Former founder," Harris corrected. "We're the future now." A smirk curled at the edge of Amara's lips. "Former? The word hung like bait she refused to bite. Inside, Harris tapped his pen against the table, counting votes before they were even cast. "Gentlemen, let's be unanimous. It'll make the press easier." A chorus of agreement followed. That sound comfortable corruption was more predictable than gravity. Outside, Amara's tablet vibrated softly. A message flashed on screen. "System alert. Unauthorized board activity detected." She glanced at Chanel. "You see? Even the code I wrote can smell dishonor." The assistant's eyes widened. "Wait, you mean—" "Yes," Amara replied quietly. "They're triggering my failsafe." From inside, a sudden laugh broke through loud, mocking. "Imagine her face when she realizes we locked her out." Another voice added, "Don't worry, she'll spin it into some empowerment speech later. They always do." The table roared with laughter. For a moment, the sound reminded Amara of another room, another lifetime. A university competition, years ago, where she'd presented her first prototype. 3 professors dismissed her work as too ambitious for someone like you. She remembered the sting in her chest, the applause for the student who plagiarized her idea. She remembered vowing that day, "Never again will I ask for a seat. I'll build my own table." And she had, until the very men sitting at her table forgot who gave them the meal. The security guard at the door cleared his throat. "Mom, they said the meeting will run another hour. Maybe you should wait in the lounge." "Why?" "To weigh." Amara turned to him slowly, her tone courteous but deliberate. "No, I'll wait here. This is my hallway, my door." The man hesitated, caught off guard by the certainty in her voice. Sure, ma'am." Inside, the energy began to swell, papers shuffling, voices overlapping. The tension wasn't only between Amara and the board now. It was within them. Guilt, fear, ambition. Each man wondering how far Harris would go and how far they'd already followed. "Vote," Harris commanded. "We're wasting time." Pens scratched, hands raised. Amara watched every silhouette move like shadows dancing on the other side of a confession. She pressed her tablet lightly, activating Protocol Atlas Phase 1. No sound, no alarm, just a silent synchronization of data, logging every decision, every timestamp, every betrayal. Then she whispered, "Let the record show. They chose convenience over conscience." The system blinked in acknowledgement. A quiet witness, loyal only to truth. Chanel's breath hitched. "Miss Lewis, what happens next?" Amara didn't look away from the door. "Next," she said softly, "they meet the woman they thought they could erase." And as she spoke, the light in the hallway dimmed slightly, her system beginning to shift the building's network. Inside, the boardroom screen flickered once, a silent tremor of consequence. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but the air already knew it was coming. The hum of fluorescent light filled the hallway, faint but relentless, like the pulse of something waiting to happen. Amara stood still, listening, not just to the muffled voices inside the boardroom, but to the rhythm of power itself. Every sound, every careless laugh was an admission. Behind her, the elevator chimed. A young woman stepped out, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a stack of reports. Her badge read, Chanel Harper, Executive Assistant. She stopped mid-step, surprised. "Miss Lewis," she whispered, startled. "They told everyone you were in London." Amara smiled faintly. "That's the beauty of assumptions. They build their own walls." Chanel glanced toward the boardroom, lowering her voice. "They're holding a vote about you." Mr. Harris said, "It's already decided." "I know," Amara replied. "I'm just giving them the rope they need." Inside, the laughter grew louder. One man's voice cut through. "Can we all agree she's been too distracted lately? All these diversity initiatives, shareholders, want results, not representation." Another chimed in, "Exactly. The board looks better without politics." Chanel's face tightened. "They're saying that out loud?" Amara turned slightly toward her. "When men believe they own a room, they forget the walls can listen." The young assistant hesitated, wrestling with fear. She wasn't supposed to speak. She'd seen what happened to employees who crossed Harris. Their careers vanished quietly, their names deleted from company directories overnight. But something in Amara's composure, the stillness, the unshakable calm, made her breathe differently. "Miss Lewis," Chanel said slowly, "your name It's still on the ownership sheet. I checked this morning. Amara's eyes met hers. For the first time, there was warmth behind the steel. Thank you. That means the system still remembers who built it. Inside, a chair scraped against the floor. Harris's voice rose again, smug. When she finally shows up, we'll just tell her it's done. No need for drama. It's business, not personal. Someone snickered. You think she'll even understand what happened? Oh, she'll understand, Harris replied, but too late to do anything about it. Chanel flinched at his tone. They don't even try to hide it. And Amara exhaled slowly, gaze fixed on the frosted glass. That's what happens when people think silence equals surrender. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. The air was thick with unspoken truth. Then Chanel shifted her weight, voice trembling. Do you want me to? I can call security, or legal. Amara shook her head. No, I didn't come here to argue. I came to listen, and to let them show me exactly who they've become. A flicker of unease crossed Chanel's face. But they're voting now. Amara's hand rested lightly on her tablet. Perfect timing. Inside the boardroom, the digital screen glowed brighter. The company's proprietary system, one she had personally designed, began syncing its activity logs with her device outside. Every keystroke, every vote, every word spoken into the corporate record now mirrored onto her tablet in real time. Chanel leaned closer, eyes wide. You're recording them? Not me, Amara corrected softly. The truth is, Wakament. 2A. From inside came another burst of laughter. Then Harris's voice, louder, sharper. All right, let's make it official. All in favor of the motion to transition leadership from Amara Lewis to interim chair. Amara raised her hand toward the glass, stopping just short of touching it. To yourself, she murmured, finishing his sentence quietly, like a verdict. The voices continued, oblivious. Hands raised, the betrayal complete. Then, a smaller voice spoke up inside the room, hesitant, shaky. It was Blake, the youngest member. Wait, he said. Are we even authorized to hold this without her? I thought company bylaws. Don't overthink it, Harris snapped. She's done. Focus. But Blake didn't look convinced. His gaze drifted toward the door, toward the shadow of Amara's silhouette standing just beyond the frosted glass. He couldn't see her face, but something in the stillness unnerved him. Amara noticed the hesitation, the faint tremor of conscience, the one spark that still existed inside that room. She turned to Chanel. There's always one, she said quietly. The witness, the one who remembers what fairness sounds like. Chanel whispered, Will that be enough? Amara's lips curved into the faintest smile. It doesn't have to be enough. It just has to begin. 8. Inside, Harris raised his hand for the final vote. Outside, Amara pressed one button on her tablet. A soft chime rang through the hallway. Every device connected to the board network flickered, silently tagging the moment in the company's digital log. Vote recorded. Unauthorized. Chanel looked down at the tablet screen, astonished. You're logging the whole thing. Amara's eyes were steady, almost serene. No, Chanel. I'm preserving history before I rewrite it. And with that, she stepped closer to the door, the reflection of her emerald dress merging into the light of the room she was about to reclaim. The digital chime faded into silence, but the tension didn't. Inside the boardroom, the men continued as if nothing had happened, tapping pens, adjusting ties, pretending that power wasn't shifting beneath their feet. Outside, Amara stood still. Her hand hovered near the glass door, the tablet glowing faintly at her side. Then came the voice that crossed the final line. Harris leaned back in her chair, and said loudly, If she shows up, stall her. Tell her we're in closed session. Better yet. He smirked. Call security. I don't want another diversity lecture ruining the day. The room erupted in quiet laughter. That was it. The air in the hallway thickened. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to buzz differently, sharper, more alive. The guard near the door straightened when Amara approached. Mom, please step back. They said no interruptions. She stopped, inches away from the glass. No interruptions? Her voice was calm, low. Tell me something, officer. Do you know who's paying for this floor? He hesitated. The company? Amara's gaze didn't waver. Correct. And who owns the company? The guard blinked. Miss, you're looking at her. Her words landed softly, but the confidence in them carried weight. He froze, unsure whether to apologize or stand his ground. Before he could decide, the door cracked open from the inside. A secretary peeked out, young, nervous, avoiding eye contact. Mr. Harris said no guests. Please wait outside. Amara smiled faintly. Tell Mr. Harris this guest built the company he's trying to steal. The woman stammered. I can't. Then step aside, Amara said quietly. She didn't raise her voice, but the tone made the corridor still. The secretary hesitated, then stepped back. As Amara reached for the handle, a memory surged up, not sharp, but deep, like a scar reopening. 10 years ago, she'd been denied entry to a venture fund meeting. She had the credentials, the pitch deck, the prototype. But the man at the door had said, "We're not taking walk-ins." That night, she sat in her car for hours, replaying the rejection until the words lost their sting and turned into fuel. That was the night she swore that no door would ever close on her again. The present snapped back into focus. Her reflection in the glass looked older now, wiser, tempered by years of proving what shouldn't have needed proof. Ems. Lewis, Chanel whispered behind her, trembling. They'll call security if you go in. Amara didn't look back. Let them. I'm done asking permission to enter rooms I built. She opened the door. The sound was small, just a soft click, but inside, it cut through the conversation like a gunshot. Every head turned. Harris's smirk froze mid-sentence. Gentlemen, Amara said evenly, I hope the meeting's going well. No one spoke. For a moment, the entire boardroom was a photograph. Her in the doorway, the men mid-motion, guilt and arrogance colliding under fluorescent light. Harris recovered first. Amara, this is a closed session. You can't just walk in. She stepped forward, each heel tapping against the marble floor with quiet precision. That's odd. I thought founders didn't need an invitation. He stood, trying to regain control. We're discussing leadership structure. It's confidential. Well, with Mediment. Ah, she said softly. So you're discussing me without me. A flush crept up his neck. You weren't available. I was in the hallway, she said, watching you mistake silence for absence. Her gaze swept across the table, locking eyes with each man in turn. One by one, they dropped their eyes except Harris. He forced a smile. Look, Amara, this isn't personal. It's strategy. Strategy? She tilted her head slightly. Replacing a founder behind closed doors is strategy? It's what's best for the shareholders. I am the majority shareholder, she said, calm but cutting. And you just conducted an unauthorized vote on company property using my network credentials. The projector on the wall flickered. Her logo, the Atlas symbol, glowed across the screen. Protocol Atlas. Executive Integrity Audit. Activated. Lines of code began streaming across the display. The men looked around, confused. What is this? One demanded. Amara turned to Chanel, who had stepped quietly into the doorway behind her. Phase 2, she said. Every tablet, every phone in the room lit up. Emails sent, messages archived, votes logged, all syncing to the founder's server. The betrayal was no longer private. Harris's voice cracked. You can't! This is my meeting! Amara looked him in the eye. No, Harris, this is my company, and you just proved why I can't trust you to lead it. Everyone's. The room went silent again. Somewhere down the hall, a printer hummed to life, spitting out reports, evidence of everything they'd done. She took a slow breath, letting the silence settle. Then, softly, You wanted to vote me out? Congratulations, you just voted yourselves out instead. And with that, the storm officially began. For a few seconds, no one in the room moved. The only sound was the low, rhythmic hum of the building's ventilation system and the faint tapping of code still streaming across the main display. Then Harris slammed his palm on the table. Enough! This is illegal! Amara didn't even blink. Illegal? She repeated softly, as if tasting the word. Strange, because the system you're looking at was written by me, protected under federal cybersecurity patents, also mine. She gestured toward the glowing screen. What you're seeing is called Protocol Atlas. and it just logged your little coup attempt for every compliance department across our global offices. A murmur of panic rippled through the board. The youngest director, Blake, looked pale. You're monitoring board sessions? Amara turned to him. I monitor misuse of power. It's a safeguard, not a weapon. But today, you decided to test how sharp it could be. One of the older members stood. We can explain back to Vestade. You don't need to, she interrupted. The system already did. On the display, data flashed faster. Timestamps, access logs, and snippets of their meeting transcribed automatically. Phrases like, replace her quietly and keep her out, lit up the screen like crimes etched in light. Harris's face turned a deep red. You can't just hijack a board meeting. Amara's voice was steady, calm, the calm that comes from certainty. No, Harris, I didn't hijack it. I reclaimed it. Most as $9. She walked to the head of the table, her chair, and placed the tablet down, its glow fading as she deactivated the command. Then she looked at the men one by one, her voice low but clear. You sat in this room and decided my worth while using systems I built, profits I earned, and equity I created. You thought I wouldn't show up, but I always show up, especially when integrity doesn't. The silence that followed was suffocating. The men avoided her gaze, pretending to shuffle papers that no longer mattered. Then, from the corner of the room, a small tremor of sound. Chanel, still standing near the door, recording everything with the internal compliance feed. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. Amara turned slightly toward her. Chanel. Yes, Miss Lewis? Send a company-wide notice. Label it, Leadership Integrity Review, effective immediately. Yes, ma'am. Their man is stock-dated. As Chanel typed, the weight in the room shifted. Harris's confidence cracked into disbelief. You're bluffing. The shareholders will never approve this. Amara smiled faintly. They already did. She tapped her screen once more. A holographic projection appeared above the table, a live feed of the global headquarters virtual board meeting. Half a dozen remote directors appeared on screen, faces tight and serious. Good morning, Amara, said a woman on the feed. Chairwoman Patel, the global ethics head. We received your activation code for Atlas Protocol. We've been monitoring this session for the last 15 minutes. Every man in the room froze. Harris stammered. You're watching this? Yes, Patel replied evenly. And what we've seen violates 3 clauses of corporate governance. Effective immediately, interim control is being restored to the founder, Miss Lewis. Amara didn't gloat. She simply nodded. Thank you, Chairwoman. Carry on, Patel said, before the feed blinked off. The silence that followed was thick with consequence. Harris's hand trembled slightly as he pointed toward her. You set us up! Amara's gaze didn't soften. No, you set yourselves up. I just turned on the lights. She walked around the table slowly, deliberately. Do you know why I built Atlas? Not to create wealth, not to impress investors. I built it so people like me wouldn't need to ask permission to belong. Her hand brushed across the polished wood surface as she stopped behind Harris's chair. But somewhere along the way, you forgot who gave you the seat you're sitting in. Harris turned to her, his tone brittle. What are you going to do now? Fire everyone? Not everyone, she said, her voice almost kind. Just the ones who mistake arrogance for leadership. She looked to Chanel again. Phase 3. As. Chanel hesitated only a moment, then pressed enter. Instantly, every company-issued device belonging to Harris and his allies pinged simultaneously. Access revoked, flashing in bold red across their screens. The men rose in protest, voices overlapping in panic. You can't do this. This is madness. Amara's voice cut through them cleanly, like glass. I can, and I just did. The room fell silent again. She stepped around the table, reclaiming her place at its head, her posture effortless. From the hallway, the morning light streamed in, reflecting off the steel edges of the room, framing her like judgment itself. For the first time since the meeting began, Harris didn't have anything to say. He simply stood there, small and furious, while the woman he tried to erase sat down in the chair that had always been hers. Now, Amara said, folding her hands, let's discuss the real future of Atlas. And somewhere deep inside the company's network, Protocol Atlas continued to hum. not as vengeance, but as proof that justice, once awakened, does not go back to sleep. The air inside the boardroom shifted heavy, expectant, the kind of silence that follows a verdict. Sunlight spilled through the glass wall, cutting bright lines across the polished table. The reflection of Amara Lewis shimmered in every glossy surface. One woman against 6 fallen men. For the first time since she walked in, she spoke softly, but every word carried like a command. "Gentlemen," she said, "let's make something clear. You didn't just try to replace a CEO. You tried to erase the woman who built your careers." Her tone was calm, but it had the gravity of thunder behind it. No shouting, no grand gestures, just authority so controlled it burned. Across the table, Harris tried to recover his footing. His voice cracked but still reached for control. "You're overreacting. We were just exploring leadership options." "Options?" Amara cut in. "That's what you call betrayal now?" Her eyes fixed on him. "You excluded your founder from a meeting about the company's future. You forged minutes. You manipulated investor correspondence. You even issued proxy votes under my name." Harris's jaw tightened. "That's not true." "Bard." A quiet chime sounded from her tablet. The wall screen flickered again this time, displaying an email header. From harris@atlastech.com. Subject: Transition Strategy. The timestamp read 9:02 a.m. The moment they started their secret meeting, the room went still. Amara turned her tablet toward him. "You sent that to every major shareholder while I was sitting outside this door. I didn't hack you, Harris. You used my network, my building, my servers." She leaned forward slightly. "The same infrastructure you told me was too expensive to maintain." Harris's confidence drained from his face. He looked around the table, desperate for support, but none came. The other directors avoided his eyes, distancing themselves from the wreckage. Amara's gaze swept over them, slow and deliberate. "You all signed it. You all tried to make me invisible." "Tevidid. F." Then she said it the line that would echo through every office in the company by sundown. "You called me a liability in the company I own." The words landed like judgment. No one moved. No one breathed. Behind her, Chanel stood frozen in the doorway, eyes wide. Even she hadn't expected the precision of that strike. Amara straightened, her voice lowering into something quieter, almost intimate. "Do you know what it feels like to be told you don't belong in your own creation? To watch men who once called you visionary now call you replaceable? It doesn't hurt anymore. It just confirms I built something powerful enough for you to want to steal it." Blake, the youngest member, swallowed hard. "Miss Lewis, I didn't know it went this far." Amara's gaze softened slightly. "Then learn from it. When you see injustice forming, don't wait until it's convenient to care." "Wine." She turned back to Harris. "You said earlier that investors want polish, not protest, that my face doesn't fit the global image." Her tone sharpened. "You were right about one thing. My face doesn't fit your idea of power. It never has. But I didn't build Atlas to fit in. I built it to redefine what leadership looks like." Her words seemed to hang in the air like a living thing, measured, flawless, irreversible. Then, without breaking eye contact, she tapped her screen again. "Carla," she said into the mic. A voice responded instantly over speaker, calm, professional, unmistakably in control. "Yes, Miss Lewis." Protocol verification confirmed. "Would you like to proceed with executive action?" Harris froze. "Wait, whose?" "That's Carla Evans," Amara said, "head of global compliance. You met her once, I think, when she approved your promotion. She's been listening this whole time." Carla's voice carried through the speakers. "Mr. Harris, the evidence collected under Atlas Protocol constitutes grounds for immediate termination under Section 8.4 corporate misconduct and breach of fiduciary trust." Harris stammered. "This is outrageous." Carla's tone didn't change. "It's documented. Your access has been revoked." The large monitor flashed red. "User access revoked. Harris E." Gasps rippled through the room. Harris turned to Amara, fury and disbelief clashing in his face. "You can't do this to me!" "Axes." Amara's response was calm, almost merciful. "I'm not doing this to you. You did it to yourself." Act 2. Carla's voice returned. "Miss Lewis, The board has been notified of reinstatement. You are authorized to resume executive control effective immediately. Thank you, Carla, Amara said, closing the tablet gently. Then she looked back at the men still seated, all of them pale and silent. I gave you trust, she said softly. You turned it into leverage. I gave you opportunity. You turned it into entitlement. Now, I'm giving you something else consequence. The sunlight had shifted now, filling the boardroom with sharp, golden light. It touched the back of her emerald dress like armor, and as she sat down, finally, in the chair that bore her name, Amara Lewis didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply breathed, steady and sure, reclaiming the air itself. Meeting adjourned, she said. No one argued. The moment Amara spoke the words, meeting adjourned, the illusion of control shattered. Papers rustled, chairs scraped, and the men who had ruled this table moments ago now sat paralyzed, each realizing the hierarchy they'd built had inverted in seconds. Harris tried to speak, but his voice came out hollow. You'll regret this. The press. The press? Amara interrupted softly. They already have the story. I sent them the truth, not your version. It's about Rive. From the hallway came the echo of footsteps, compliance officers entering quietly, badges clipped to their suits. One of them approached Harris. Sir, you'll need to surrender your ID and company device. His jaw tightened. This is absurd. Amara didn't even look up. No, Mr. Harris. This is accountability. Around the table, the others sat motionless. The bravest among them finally whispered, We never meant for it to go this far. Amara turned to him, her tone calm but unforgiving. That's what every bystander says, until silence turns into partnership. Blake stood, voice trembling. Miss Lewis, I want to help fix this. She met his eyes. Then start by telling the truth. To the board, to yourself, and in air. The compliance officers escorted Harris out, his protests dissolving into the hum of the corridor. As the door closed, the entire room seemed to exhale. Chanel stepped closer, breaking the stillness. It's done, she said quietly. They're gone. Amara nodded. Not gone. Exposed. There's a difference. She looked around at the vacant seats, each one a symbol of arrogance, now empty. I trusted this room once, she said, but trust without integrity is just an invitation for betrayal. Her gaze returned to the company logo glowing faintly on the wall. Today, Atlas doesn't just get new leadership, it gets its conscience back. Outside, a faint applause began employees who'd been watching the live compliance feed. The sound spread, echoing down the glass halls like a tide. Amara didn't stand. She simply rested her hands on the table she had built, her reflection steady in the polished surface. Justice doesn't need to shout, she murmured. It just needs to be heard. And for the first time in years, the building felt honest again. When the door closed behind the last compliance officer, quiet filled the boardroom again. Not the awkward quiet of tension, but the clean silence that follows truth. Sunlight streamed across the table where hours earlier betrayal had taken root. Now, it gleamed like renewal. Amara rose slowly, her emerald dress catching the light. Chanel stood beside her, tablet in hand, waiting for direction. Send the reform notice, Amara said. Effective immediately. Every department, every branch, we rebuild from transparency up. Yes, ma'am. She turned toward the panoramic window overlooking the city, the skyline she'd once only dreamed of touching. From here, every building seemed small, every shadow temporary. Her voice, when she spoke again, was low but resonant, the tone of a woman who had earned her authority and no longer needed to prove it. I didn't fight for power, she said. I fought for principle. I didn't build Atlas to be admired. I built it so the next generation doesn't have to knock on doors they already own. Chanel looked at her, eyes glistening. What happens now? Amara smiled faintly. Now, we lead differently. No more secret rooms, no more voices silenced by hierarchy. From today, this company answers to truth, not titles. She gathered her tablet, the digital heartbeat of Atlas still pulsing quietly on its screen. Through the glass wall, employees stood in the hallway, watching, not with fear, but pride. Some clapped softly, others just nodded. Amara stepped toward the door. "Keep the feed live for 10 more minutes," she told Chanel. "Let them see what integrity looks like in real time." "Five are wise." Chanel nodded, pressing a key. Before leaving, Amara paused once more at the head of the table, the chair where arrogance had sat and justice had returned. "I didn't raise my voice," she said softly, as if to the walls themselves. "I raised the standard." Then she walked out, steady, unhurried, while the company she built began to breathe again, one honest heartbeat at a time.